Hi, I'm Angified. I started Angified Presents.
We share the love of music.
It has been medicine and therapy. Nothing else worked.
It has saved many of us. With mental health, we need to open our eyes.
Hurt people hurt people.
We ask that you listen, comprehend, and relate with your ears.
Form that heart of unity and one.
We share on this stage.
Statistics, feelings.
And ourselves.
We stand with the belief to be you, to be heard, and to be original.
We all may be different, with opinions and beliefs.
At the end of the day, we are all brothers and sisters.
We are family.
We ask that you join us in a magical journey with artists from around the world. Open your minds, let in the love,
and listen with your hearts.
We all want a better tomorrow. Be one.
Communicate and look out for one another. And then, and only then, will you find the world.
We will find peace in all the world.
You'll find the world. And you will find in this shining world. He was among us in every boy and girl. Many have been broken, red hearts turn black. Love will melt the ice and turn it back, and you will find the world. You will find the world. You will find the world. And when you find a place called home, where everyone is free to roam, a whole new world, a better place for our children's futures at stake. And you'll find, with music in your soul, laughter in your hearts, together we can grow a better place, with love in us all. And you will find, together we can save it all. And you will find, and you will find a place called home, where everyone is free to roam, a better place, a whole new world.
Rawr.
We cover digital audio workstations and music tools. We explore theory, gear and 82. How to weigh and compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and synths that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much RAM. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking IT. We're talking IT. Every Thursday night on Angified.
Oh, I gotta get that Shhh move.
Takes practice, man. It takes practice.
Yes.
It's all about the time. You got it right behind you there, though. I can see it.
Yeah.
Happy Thursday.
Oh, it's another Thursday. Lend us your ear.
The weekend is almost here, but not quite yet.
Yeah. We got a storm coming this weekend. Right before my birthday.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. Make sure you stock up on everything important.
That's the plan tomorrow before everything hits.
Now, is that going to be the plan tomorrow for everyone within 400 miles of you, or is that early enough?
As long as I take care of business.
There you go. That's the important thing.
Yeah. And my brother's in Texas right now, so if it does come down, there's no one to plow the driveway.
Yeah, you're holding down the fort.
Yeah.
Build a snow fort. Plenty of ammunition. Lots of snowballs.
Yeah. Well, we've got some news again this week. You know, it seems like this year, the music news is flying fast and furious.
Big time.
Yeah, let's jump over to the IT cave and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Oh no, I want it on the other side. I said this way.
There we go. Better.
Yeah. So, you know, like since the beginning of the year, we've looked at like companies that are selling off. Last week, found out Native Instruments is going insolvent. And all of these are some big moves in companies. And when I heard this one last week, coming from Miss Crystal, the source, DistroKid is starting to look at their valuation and talks of selling. And considering how many artists are going through DistroKid, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. And what happens to, terms of service that they signed up for when that happens?
First thing I thought when I heard this news, because Crystal has talked about this in the past when companies do change ownership like that, and the contracts that you might have been signed into, sometimes the fine writing changes and unless you're paying attention as the artist, you could be in a contract that you didn't sign up for. And if you don't unsign up, you're caught in it. And there's a lot of concerns with this, depending on whether you want to continue with DistroKid after they sell. It's going to depend on how big their changes are going to be.
Yep. And that's the question is, how big changes are that they announced now and how much of whatever change they announced now is the final product of what comes out of it at the end.
Yeah. And I suspect some of this may be tied to some of these AI settlements that have happened, and some of those changes may be related to how they're going to deal with some of that in the future.
Sure. It's a lot up in the air at this time.
There's not a lot of distributors left at this point. They've all been getting consolidated, and kind of curious who would be the purchaser of something like DistroKid. Is it going to be a Sony? UMG last year bought one of the distributors, and what did you see after they did that? You saw UMG start going after AI and anybody playing any Universal songs. If that happens again, we could be going through the same thing in 2026.
Yep. And it keeps getting, each time it happens, they're probably clamping down more and finding the algorithm easier to track down things to clamp down on. So,
yeah. So Crystal's going to fill us in on that. And I wanted to get something in on the writing side of the actual like author writing, not songwriting. And mainly because I see parallels in the author world as in the music world. And I found this to be really interesting. Alyssa Matasik, she talks about like what's hot in 2026 to write about. If you're an author and you're looking to write a book about something right now, there's certain themes and things that are selling, that are hot. And I'm wondering how this could translate into songwriting.
Yep. And that's the thing is, there are differences between the two, but there are a lot of parallels when it comes to the writing. And there's also a lot of parallels when it comes to how AI will intrude. And I think AI will intrude even more on writing than it will on music. So I can see that being, a bellwether for what's going on here as well.
If it can intrude more on the writing side than it already has on music, then people are going to be discussing this.
Well, just think about it. Like if you can, any kind of prompt you can throw at AI, you can have it make any kind of image or video. I mean, words are easy. Like tell AI, make me a story about blah, and even if it hallucinates, fine. It's making a story about blah. It's supposed to hallucinate. It's supposed to make it up. So
well, and whether it writes an interesting story.
That's the question. Yeah,
because you see that problem in the music side when you try to use it for lyrics. The lyrics sometimes sound cheesy, cliche, everything you don't want in your song.
Yeah.
The AI tends to write words that way. So if you're going to use it on the book side, you're probably going to have to edit your AI just to keep it interesting.
We even had one of our friends write a song where he did everything as a complete cliche, like every cliche you could possibly imagine, packed them all in there, and it still sounded great because the way that they were all kind of put in.
Yeah, well, Jake was up for that challenge.
Yeah,
if anybody could pull it off, he was it.
Exactly.
And our next one, last week we looked at a guy that was building his own effects box so he could run VSTs on stage. And when I came across this one, I was like, how's this possible?
The Steamdeck?
Deck Wizard, yeah. Apparently, he's using his Steamdeck to run his entire guitar rig. So, like the thumbnail you see here, he's actually going to show how he set up the Steamdeck to make a dual boot to run Windows 11. But the video we're actually going to watch is the Steamdeck is my entire guitar rig.
Nice.
I,
I was hoping you saw that one this week because I saw that one come up in my feed too, and I was like,
yeah. Well, and I'm a little skeptical, but damn, I'm curious.
Yep. Nice.
If this works, that's worthy of consideration, especially considering the cost and if it performs, if it does what it's supposed to do.
Exactly.
And this one I wanted to include because I had a friend way back. I mean, we're talking over a decade ago, who did something like this. He he took a portable drive and he built what you would call like a survival kit in case, if the internet, God forbid, was to go down, if we sometimes take for granted that, like, oh, if I need to know something, then I'll just jump on the internet and find out how to do find my instructions. But if there was a situation where you lose access to the internet, and obviously you might lose power, but given the way you can use generators these days, if you at least have a survival drive. Oh, whoa. I'm surviving.
It's back. It was like, don't show it. It's too secret.
But if you at least have something like this in a situation like that, there's certain things you would want, certain information and things that you would want on a drive like this. And this is a company that's actually taken a interesting approach, not just to having the kind of data that you might need for instructions, but also the ability to be your own Wi-Fi, if necessary, so that your other machines could get access to this data. You might not be able to get to the internet, but you kind of have your own internet in that situation. It's not expensive, and it's probably not a bad thing for people to consider having, just like that emergency medical box with, things you might need in a pinch.
Yeah. And actually, when I first got my first iPad, that was one of the first things I did. Was like, what kind of information would I want to have on here? If everything went dark, like if the internet went out, you want to have stuff on there like maps and things like that, like having a local copy of maps so that you can get around. That's important. Poisonous plants. Depending on where you are, like there's all kinds of things that you don't think about most of the time, but things that would not be a bad idea to have a textbook on. But things that are really important are like chemistry for the end of the world, physics for the end of the world, like things like that, things about like how to rebuild society from nothing, using like understanding of where to get iron and where to get everything that you need,
or just basic survival instructions, like how to catch a fish without a fishing pole.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a bunch of good ones like that, little trap stuff. But
yeah, and my friend who had built this started making all these instructional videos for that purpose.
Yep. Nice.
So, and then for the last two videos, we're going to get into some mixing. It's been a while since we had a mix night, and this was one that I wanted to bring in, over the last couple of weeks, but we were covering different things, and inserts, they're like buses. We talk about buses all the time, and a lot of people get confused about inserts and how to use them, what they're useful for. David here does a great explanation of what they are and where you want to use them in your mixing and mastering. It's a very useful function in a mixer.
Nice. And
if you don't watch this video, that lizard's going to eat you.
Exactly. Gotta love the lizard.
Yeah. And then for the last one, this one's coming from Waves Audio, and this is their suggestion for a good mix bus master effects chain using the Waves plugins. Waves has some great ones, and I've played around with a bunch of them, and I've always been confused about, like, where should I use this plugin? where would it be best used? And in this particular case, we're going to see a master bus effects chain and how you can utilize some of these wave plugins to get a great master bus.
Nice. Yeah, it's useful information for anybody.
Yeah. For the engineers out there, the ones trying to get a cleaner output at the end of the chain, these are the kinds of tips that there's different ways to approach it. What I like with this one is the wave plugins, trying to figure out, there's like 500 of them, trying to figure out which ones do I need for this.
Yep. Start with the ones that are most, like the way we usually go with anything, like, start from basic and just start adding layers as you need them. But you don't want to just start with 50 things and then start tweaking everything all at once. You got to go step by step.
Yeah. And for something like this on the master bus, I'm thinking EQ at the beginning, EQ at the end, and whatever goes in the middle, compression, anything else that needs to be there in the middle. I'm expecting that they'll probably take that kind of approach, because you got to kind of fix your sound coming in and you got to tweak it going out.
But you got to make sure you don't squash too much on either end.
Yeah. So to get started, big news again, between Native Instruments and some of the other like sell-offs that we've seen. I mean, we're only 1 month into this year, and there's been major news every single week. This one, a lot of people, a lot of our viewers use DistroKid, and I almost went with them last year when my buddy needed to get some songs out there, and I kind of looked both at DistroKid and TuneCore, and I ended up going with TuneCore simply because what was going on at DistroKid last year, there's a lot of negative noise that I was hearing, and I didn't want to deal with that. And it's not to say TuneCore doesn't have their own faults, but there was a lot less noise on that side. So,
and sometimes that's what counts,
Yeah. And this one's coming from at Top Music Attorney, Ms. Crystal. We love this channel. I check it daily. I check it daily now, and
nice.
And also check out her artist channel at Miss Crystal Live. That's where you get her jams, her music. Very creative, talented singer, and also Delgado Entertainment Law. That's her firm's YouTube channel. Both this channel and the Top Music Attorney, that's where you get great legal advice. With the Top Music Attorney, as you can see here, this is where you get the news. Like, this is where she keeps you up on what's going on with AI. She is right there in the front of that battle. And when it comes to the distributors, for years now, she'll read their legal agreements, and I guarantee you, if DistroKid does get sold and the legalese changes in your contract, she's going to cover it, because she covers all of them.
Exactly.
And from the title, DistroKid is selling. That's a bad sign. So it caught me as soon as I saw that. I'm like, oh, damn, if she thinks so, I agree. Especially the timing right now. I'm wondering why. It's not like they seem to be any financial trouble. They're making tons of money, but maybe it is a good idea. There's somebody over there thinking that, like, this could work.
Yeah. And again, sometimes the companies are just seeing the writing on the wall with AI coming and don't want to be a part of it, or don't want to be as heavily a part of it.
Yeah. I'm curious if they've had any offers that got them thinking about it, or they just started thinking about it and now they're putting the idea out there to see if there's any big bites.
Shop for offers.
I hope it's not like universal ends up buying it, because if that's the case, then Universal's like grabbing big pieces of pies out there. And they've already caused enough trouble last year that, like, don't add these millions of artists on top of everything else that's going on over there.
Yeah.
Let's see what she thinks about it and why she thinks it's a bad sign.
All right.
DistroKid is the biggest independent music distributor in the world. It's literally distributing half of the music on the internet right now, like upwards of 40% of all of the music. And with that being said, knowing that it's the biggest one, it's at its prime right now. Well, the fact that DistroKid is selling is a really bad sign. Now, what I do know from actually working with DistroKid, I fight the good fight on behalf of you guys all the time, and DistroKid is a huge company, and so we have claims with them, and I'm talking to their legal counsel almost every single day. Well, they have quite the business plan of how the company is structured, because like other distributors, such as let's say TuneCore, that will take a percentage of what you actually earn. DistroKid's business model is actually a subscription plan. Okay, we're going to talk about it. But looking at the numbers here is going to guide us to the ultimate, well, hopefully, answer. All right, so we know that roughly about 2 million artists are using DistroKid right now. And we also know that Spotify just reported paying out $11 billion in royalties. And so understanding that DistroKid is in charge of, well, about 40% of that, it's taking a massive slice of all of the music royalties, and it has huge margins. So this isn't a startup company. This is a very profitable company, and looking at the subscription model that it has right now, the fact that we're now reading that Goldman Sachs, Rain Group, right, these big investment companies, these big management companies are exploring a sale of DistroKid with a valuation around $2 billion. And so, we look at the leadership. We go, well, we do see that DistroKid was founded by Philip Kaplan. This was back in 2013. And then fast forward to 2024, he decided to kind of take a backseat role. So he went from CEO over to chairman, and then someone else stepped in. This was Phil Bauer. And then Phil Bauer had otherwise been in operations for a long time, and now he was stepping into the shoes. And so we go, all right, the company is making a very strategic change right now. So we go, what does DistroKid know that we don't? Now, I mentioned that DistroKid, because you guys are always very curious about us comparing the different music distributors, right? Because you have DistroKid and Symphonic and CD Baby and TuneCore. Well, it's not like some of the other distributors that do focus on just taking a cut, because a cut of even a small amount at volume, if you're representing 2 million artists, it adds up. Now, I did take a look at the different tiers that they have as of right now. You can have the musician tier, which is $25 a year. That's for one artist. And then you have Musician Plus, $45 for the year. That's 2 artists, plus you get some extra stats. And then lastly, you have the ultimate tier, which is $90. You get 5+ artists, you get all kinds of like extra perks, you get some playlist contacts. All right, so it sounds great. Again, I'm over here just playing with the numbers. So at 2 million artists, I'm like landing around 75 million is what they're likely making right now, just based on the base subscriptions. Now, if you guys don't know, I make music. I've used DistroKid, so I can give you some feedback, not just from the legal perspective, but actually being a creator myself. So I've used their platform before, and I can tell you they do have add-ons as well, right? So they can do your YouTube monetization, your content ID. And, at the time they had, well, for most companies, they usually take a 20% rip. There's a legacy, leave a legacy, where it's like, we'll never take down your music. If you pass away, your music will live on forever, which is just so problematic in my mind. But anyway, you can pay for that. You can do cover songs. Again, a little bit misleading, because you actually don't need to get cover song licenses anymore in the US. We're going to leave that alone as well. But the point just being, I go, doing the numbers here, I landed somewhere around 100 million. If DistroKid is making somewhere around 100 million, we also know that they laid off a bunch of people a year and a half ago because they're downsizing. So I go, all right, so why sell? What we do know, as we're looking at the rest of the industry right now, is that a lot of music executives are jumping from, major record labels, from big companies like Spotify, and they're actually going and getting jobs from these AI companies. We know that also, labels are merging. We're reading all about not just merging, but how distributors are also consolidating. So in a way, I'm like, are these music businesses all just cashing out? They're like, get it while it's good. Let's get the payday, because, well, ... So what I'm thinking about is I go, well, what does this mean for artists, especially the ones of you who are using DistroKid? I go, the second that they sell, because who are they going to sell to? Well, we saw that CD Baby sold to Downtown. And then guess what? Downtown sold to Universal. So all of a sudden, one of the biggest platforms that are used by independents is now being run by Universal. So there's that. But we go, more than likely, it's going to be a major label that swoops in and purchases up DistroKid. Okay, so we go either way. There's going to be new terms of service. The last time that they updated the terms of service was June 8th, 2021. I know that because I've reviewed their terms of service on the channel and we go back regularly. I'm always scouring to see if they have made any changes and they don't. So what's going to happen is that when a new company comes in and takes over, they're going to make changes. And I'm real worried about what's going to happen. Because with these changes, we go, some of these other companies we're seeing where they're like forcing AI terms, they're forcing IP licensing. So like your intellectual property, your songs, the copyrights. We're like, all of a sudden now, music distributors are taking way the hell more than what they're entitled to, what I even think is lawful. So this is where I'm genuinely getting concerned, because it's kind of like, know your enemy. We know the enemy as they are right now as these big music businesses that we have to deal with. And so it can sometimes get scary when now it is someone else who runs your stuff, who is in charge of the infrastructure that you rely on for your music distribution. So either this is genius timing, or the biggest independent music distributor in the world sees something coming. I'm Top Music Attorney. See you on the next one.
Oh, is it genius timing though?
That's the question. And, if it is, I mean, in retrospect, it's easy to see like they timed it just right, but at the time it's still a gamble. I mean, whether they get it right or not.
Well, when she mentioned it seems like it's possible they're cashing out. Given the lawsuits and the activity that we've been seeing, especially over the last year, it's possible they might be nervous that if they continue the way that they are, they could end up being in a major lawsuit they don't want to be in. For one reason or another. The reason I'm thinking a lot of these distributors, she's gone after them because they're not paying out. They don't pay out to their artists properly. In some cases, like Spotify is, flagging accounts for AI activity or botting, and then Spotify gets the ad dollars, but then they don't necessarily give them to the distributor if they flag the account, and then the distributor doesn't give them to the artists. And there's a lot of money stuck in places like Spotify and the distributors. We're not talking little bits of money. We're talking millions, if not hundreds of millions. In the case of Spotify holding things back, some say it could be $500 million worth of money that's frozen because these accounts no good. Spotify doesn't give that advertising money back to the advertisers. It sits in coffers, and it's possible DistroKid has that same situation where there's a lot of money sitting in banks that's supposed to go to artists, but it's all being frozen for one reason or another.
And as we've seen with certain things in the past, like if you do get flagged, even on something where it's an accidental flag or the algorithm picks it up, but it's not correct, I mean, getting that straightened out can take time, and your dollars are frozen or locked up in the meantime. Yeah.
There are tons of artists who are trying to fight that to get their money. They go to her. That's a big chunk of her business, is actually dealing with artists that are getting screwed this way. Yeah. That's why she's like, so on these distributors, what's going on with AI. It's because it's where all the business and the problems need to get fixed.
Exactly. And it's good that she keeps her finger on the pulse.
Oh, she's a musical stormtrooper. At Top Music Attorney, You can find her music at Miss Crystal Live. It kicks ass, that song that she plays there at the end. I've been hooked on it.
Nice.
And at Delgado Entertainment Law. That's the firm. If you ever run into legal problems in the music world, this is your best place to get help.
Yep, absolutely.
Fighting the good fight. So now we're going to get into a little bit of writing, and writing in the sense of book writing and book publishing. And I really see a lot of similarities here with songwriting and music writing. You got to know your audience. You got to know what's trending in the field that you're dealing with, and if you really want to write something that's likely going to stand a good chance out there, you kind of have to pay attention to these things. And I found this really interesting to look at it from a book publishing perspective.
Nice.
And there's a lot, like, freshy channel for us here. I subscribed, Alyssa, because I started going through these, and she really is looking at all the things that a writer deals with, has to think, keep in consideration. And at Alyssa Matasik over on YouTube, and she's an oh, he got blipped. It wasn't me this time. She's an independent development book editor and publishing consultant. And she's going to be consulting us on the 5 biggest book trends for 2026. Anybody out there that's thinking of putting together, a book, should consider her advice here.
Nice.
Or if you're putting together a screenplay, that would be another thing, that definitely falls under these kinds of advice.
For sure.
Let's learn to write a book.
Nice.
These are the 5 trends dominating book publishing in 2026 that every writer needs to know, because if you don't, you're threatening your book's success. I analyzed 40 book deals for debut authors that were announced over the last month to determine how the book market is shifting. And I was genuinely surprised by what I found, even though I've been in this business for a decade. I'll share the 5 biggest book trends that we're seeing in 2026, and at the end, I'll answer the burning question: is traditional publishing even worth pursuing as a debut author today? This first trend showed up in nearly all of the book deals I analyzed, and it's completely reshaping what gets published. Genre blending. Publishers are obsessed with genre mashups right now. The data proves it. 75% of the book deals that were announced since January 1st for debut authors involve stories that blend 2 or more genres. And here's what's especially fascinating. Romance is almost always in the equation. We're seeing romance mixed with horror, romance with historical fiction, romance with suspense, and even romance with supernatural thriller elements. This trend suggests that publishers aren't as interested in straightforward stories that check all the typical genre boxes. They want stories that give readers multiple experiences in one book, and they want to see unexpected concepts thrown together. For instance, one book was pitched as Gilmore Girls meets Scream. Another was described as a nerdy friends to lovers rom-com that involves a high-stakes heist. There was also a book described as My Roommate is a Vampire meets Netflix's Wednesday set on a college campus. These books aren't just being pitched as romance with a touch of mystery. They're fully integrated genre blends where both elements are equally important to the story. Why do publishers want these genre hybrids so much? Genre blending solves a key problem in today's extremely crowded and saturated market: differentiation. When you put 2 unexpected genres or comp titles together, you immediately pique interest and demonstrate what sets your story apart. Plus, it means that the book will automatically appeal to multiple reader bases. Why do you think romantasy has blown up so much in the past few years? It scratches the fantasy itch, the romance itch, and has become its own booming genre entirely. So if your book doesn't fit neatly into one genre box, Don't try to force it. Instead, lean into the mashup. Figure out your X meets Y pitch and use it to your advantage. This next trend is the secret ingredient publishers are using to get readers addicted to their books. And you should too. Suspense engines. I was stunned to see that nearly 40% of the book deals reported for debut authors this year across all genres included some mystery, thriller, or suspense elements, even if they weren't primarily pitched as one of those genres. There was a speculative historical thriller in the vein of Sherlock Holmes, a dark academia thriller, a darkly humorous murder mystery, even a horror novel where PTA moms start mysteriously vanishing. Publishers have figured out that suspense is one of the most reliable ways to achieve that page-turning quality that keeps readers up until 3 a.m. to finish the book. That's exactly why suspense-driven movies like The Housemaid and TV shows like All Her Fault are so popular. And yes, both were based on books. So how can you add a suspense engine to your story? The key is to plant unanswered questions that readers desperately want answered. This could be a missing person, a mystery from the past that's impacting the present, or even just a looming threat that's slowly closing in on your characters. One deal I saw followed a woman who was searching for the son she gave up for adoption. And even though that book wasn't primarily labeled a mystery or a thriller, that is the suspense engine that fuels the story. The suspense in your story doesn't have to be life or death stakes. It just has to make readers ask, what happens next? What's the truth? How is this going to resolve? This next trend might make you reconsider where your story takes place. Transportive settings. 1 in 4 of the debut book deals announced this year so far involved non-US settings, with European settings being especially popular. And nearly 1 in 5 were set in historical periods. It seems that publishers are betting that readers want to be transported to someplace dramatically different from their present lives. We're seeing books set in 1949 Paris, 16th century England, 1990s Nigeria, a boarding school in the Berkshires in 1969. But here's what makes these settings so powerful. They're not just window dressings. They're integral to the plot. Take the book set in 1949 Paris, which follows a journalist's wife who finds a body at her culinary school. The post-war Paris setting allows her to explore the complicated truth about Franco-American relations at the time. In the book set in 1990s Nigeria, a young girl navigates the complicated dynamics between her mother and her father's mistress. The turbulent political backdrop of that specific time and place is essential to the story's themes of independence and agency. If you're setting your story in a different time or place, make sure that it's for a reason beyond it seems cool. Ask yourself, how does my setting inform my characters' choices and identities? What conflicts are unique to this particular time and place? What can I explore here that I can't in a contemporary American setting? If you're not familiar with your setting personally, make sure to thoroughly research it so it comes across as fully developed and authentic. Now, this next trend signals a shift in whose stories are being told. Broader representation. We're seeing an exciting expansion in the types of characters who are put front and center in fiction. As I looked at this year's debut book deals, 2 patterns emerged when it came to representation. The first, older female protagonists. These aren't wise grandmothers in the background, but main characters living full and complex lives. One book follows a fiery septuagenarian widow who has a dating app romance. Another features a 71-year-old widow who impulsively buys a camper van and goes on a road trip to find her long-lost first love. These stories aren't about aging entirely. They're stories where the protagonists just happen to be older, but are pursuing adventures that are just as exciting as those of 20-somethings. This matters because it expands the pool of readers who can see themselves in the books they see on the shelf. And commercially, publishers are recognizing that older female readers have significant buying power and are hungry for stories that reflect their experiences. The other major representation trend is stories that center queer characters rather than leave them on the periphery. There was a contemporary gay rom-com set in Beijing, a queer Edwardian romance about a bisexual jewel thief, a historical mystery with a sapphic subplot set in 16th century England, and a literary novel exploring queer desire in a Black Pentecostal church. What I love about these stories is that they don't seem to be focusing primarily on the queer character's trauma or struggles with identity. Many of them are genre novels, romances, or mysteries where the characters just happen to be queer. If you're writing older or queer characters, don't be afraid to let them exist in genre fiction. Let them have adventures beyond their identities. Now, this next trend was the most interesting to me because it tells us what themes are resonating right now. The dark side of domestic life. Publishers are leaning hard into stories that explore the horror and dysfunction in our home and family lives. Two specific themes rose to the surface. The first, motherhood as horror. In my analysis, I noticed 2 book deals being pitched as for fans of Night Bitch, which is a novel and now a film starring Amy Adams, where a mother believes that she's turning into a dog. These stories don't romanticize or glorify the experience of modern motherhood, but rather examine mothers' quiet rage, sacrifice, and psychological unraveling. They're shining a light on the ugly, difficult, but undeniable parts of one of life's most profound experiences. Now let's talk about the second theme, marriages being pushed to their breaking point. One of the book deals from this year features a woman trying to have a smooth divorce, but then facing brutal legal battles and accusations of adultery. Another is about a marriage of convenience between a cafe owner and a hotel executive. There's even a novel about a newly engaged couple whose relationship unravels when they house sit in a remote location. All of these books examine the gap between the idealized version of domestic life we're sold, a happy marriage, a perfect family, suburban bliss, and the messy, sometimes horrifying reality. So if you're writing about family, marriage, or parenthood, don't be afraid to show the dark sides. The market is clearly ready for stories that expose the uncomfortable truths that we all see and experience, but keep quiet. Now, I know what you might be thinking. These trends are great and all, but it's simply impossible to get a book deal as a debut author. Publishers only want books from established bestsellers or celebrities. So why does any of this even matter? Here's what honestly shocked me the most out of all the analysis I did. The data proves that publishers are actively investing, sometimes competitively, in debut voices. Of all the debut book deals that were reported so far this year, 40% were sold in preempts and 25% went to auction. Let me explain what these industry terms mean and why they matter. A preempt is when a publisher makes an offer so strong that the agent and author accept it before shopping the book to other publishers. And an auction means that multiple publishers were bidding against one another to try to acquire the book. So many of these books being sold in preempts and at auctions means that there is a ton of demand for strong debut fiction. Publishers aren't just casually buying these books, they're paying more so that no other publisher has the chance to scoop it up. And in some cases, publishers are fighting over these books. Here's another encouraging stat. 1/3 of these book deals were for 2 or 3 books, meaning that publishers are investing in debut authors as franchises. They're betting on these authors' long-term potential, not just acquiring a single book. So if you're a debut author who dreams of getting traditionally published this year, it absolutely still is a viable path. But know that it does remain highly, highly competitive. I've anecdotally seen agents report that they've received more queries than ever this year. So do your best to position your book strategically so it stands out. And most importantly, make sure that you're crafting the absolute best version of your story possible. Your story concept is super important, but it ultimately doesn't matter if the writing falls flat. If your book aligns with any of these trends I identified, I hope you use it to your advantage this year. But if it doesn't, don't panic. Trends shift, and there will always be room for exceptionally told stories, regardless of whether they fit the current market. Now that you know where publishing is heading this year, you need to craft a stellar query letter that catches attention. So watch this video where I reveal my foolproof query letter formula that landed agent offers and book deals. Thanks so much for watching, and happy writing.
There's such interesting parallels between the music world and the publishing world in the writing sense there, because just like it's hard to get a record deal, writers do have a certain challenge, but it's cool to hear that, like, in the publishing world, they are still interested in up and comers.
Yeah, and the auctions and the preempts, that's also very good, showing that there are they're trying to position themselves to get the work from the authors, and they're also trying to bid competitively against each other, so that it's not like you're just reaching out to 100 different publishers and hearing back from maybe one. It sounds more like there's more active back and forth.
Yeah, yeah. So if you are a writer and you're feeling like there's just no way I'm ever gonna, it's all celebrities and authors who have already sold books. There's some hope there that it's not just a popularity contest.
Yeah, and I do like the idea that it's also the multiple styles thing, like combining different genres or different styles. I mean, even in music, like that's also something we've talked about before. Also, not getting stuck in one particular shoebox, but having your stuff, be more accessible to more people.
That was the main reason why I wanted to get this in there, was what she suggests with the genre. That very much fits in the musical mentality too. You know what genre you want to play in, but you should be willing to blend and mash things up the way she suggests, because that's how you hit wider audiences.
Definitely.
And if romance is a big one, it's the same in the music world. Like half the songs out there are about falling in love or falling out of love.
Love song.
If you can add some fantasy or some science fiction to your theme, you can make a very unique song that way.
The trick is to not have it sound like you just took a love song and like slapped sci-fi on it, or you took sci-fi thing and slapped a romance on it. It's like it needs to work its way into the storyline deeply, so that it's not leaning too heavily one way or the other, and it doesn't jump back and forth too much.
It shouldn't feel forced.
Right.
Whether you're writing a book or whether you're writing a song, if it's forced, the reader and the listener are going to pick up on that.
Yeah. And then it just, as I say, it just sounds, not authentic when it comes out that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the way they have to do their write-ups. When they do a query and they're trying to pitch their idea in their book, I like those little paragraph write-ups of like, this is what the story's about and this is what the book's going to be. Musicians should do that with their songs. When I was seeing that, I was like, if a musician would do a little write-up of this song is about this, and the purpose of this song is to tell this story, or whatever you're trying to do with that song, if you put some thought into it that way, you might write a better song.
Yeah. And sometimes that stuff comes out after the song. Like, the song, you put your work into the song, and then you don't truly appreciate it until time goes on. And like after the song even comes out, then you're thinking about it more and, seeing how it more relates.
Well, and then you have to describe your song to somebody who's never heard it. You're going to that record exec and trying to convince them like you've got material that they should consider. You have to be able to describe your song in that kind of fashion to somebody who's never heard it.
And that's tricky, because then it's like, okay, is it, you're trying to pick an artist that it's like, and it's like, well, I'm not trying to be like that artist, but it's, it's similar to this artist, but different in this way or whatever. It's hard to draw a comparison if someone has never heard you and you're trying to tell them, they have nothing to compare it to. So it's better to just listen to it and you'll find out.
and if you were trying to pitch your book and you said, well, it's kind of like a Stephen King story, you might get some interest from that publisher who's like, oh, we could use a Stephen King. But at the same time, that publisher doesn't want to hear that you're writing a book like that. They want to hear that you're writing a book like you, that you have your own identity. You're not just trying to sound like something else.
That's why in those little write-ups, you're almost better off focusing on the story itself as opposed to what it sounds like or who, what style it's in. It's more like it's a story about, keep it focused on the characters and, what's going on in the story as opposed to what artist or what author it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah. It just like the writing that you're going to do to pitch to the publisher, the writing that you put on the back of the book, so that the person who's like, do I want to buy this book? And, when I used to read books, that's the first thing I would do is go to the back and what is this actually what am I gonna be reading here?
And the picture should be somebody looking at you like, you're going to buy my book, right?
Like that lizard we're gonna see.
That's right. Coming soon.
That's some great advice from Melissa. If whether you're a writer for novels or whether you're a writer for songs, keep all that advice in consideration. They're relative.
Exactly.
At Alyssa Matasic, Freshy channel. I did hit subscribe, Alyssa.
Yes. Well done.
Yes. And now I want to find out how this is possible.
The Steamdeck. Nice.
Yes. I'm still in doubt, but considering some of the hints as to what they're doing here, if it does work, damn man, you could sell twice as many Steam Decks if you can let guitarists out there know like this works.
Yeah. And again, you know, a lot of them would like to have a Steam Deck anyway, as far as video games go. So it's like, this just kind of justifies half of the purchase price for you. It's like, it also does that.
Yeah. When you're not on stage, you can game.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is coming from at Sebasticide, Sebasticid. It's Sebastian. They're going to show how they converted a Steam Deck into what I'm assuming is going to run VST plugins. Same thing we were looking at last week in hardware that's readily available.
Nice.
And I am curious I want to go watch this other video on how to dual boot it, because if I can actually run multiple operating systems on this thing, not just for guitar, but for a whole bunch of things, there's a lot of usefulness there.
For sure.
So I may get double tips here.
Right.
Hey, I am making this video because I want to showcase my live rig. I got Neural DSP and Reaper working on my Steam Deck, and I am using these for my live shows. I was playing at NAMM with this and it worked really well. There is not a lot of information online about this, so I really want to make this video for all of you. It really surprised me how well it worked. For instance, I am using the lowest buffer size on the Steam Deck, which is 16 samples, and even though it's so low, it's not crackling or doing any weird glitches. And as you can see, everything is functional. I can move through the session and I can press record if I want. And I can even mute tracks if I want. I can also see all of the mixing console in case I need to tweak anything, but I made sure I didn't have to. So the battery is really good. Right now I have everything running and I am recording, and I have 6 hours and 7 minutes of battery expected with 88% of battery left. I'm gonna show you how I did it, and please, if you find a way of making this setup better, send me a message or on Instagram or anything and let me know, because I'm really invested in this. So the first thing for this setup is installing Windows in a very small partition of the SSD. You can do it without installing Windows if you are very good with Linux, but I've never used Linux before, so I tried and I spent so much time and I just couldn't understand everything that I was finding, and that's why I felt way more comfortable with Linux, and especially because my performance was a few days after I got the Steam Deck. The first thing that I did was enabling dual booting on Windows, so I followed this tutorial. I followed everything this guy said because I don't know anything about SteamOS, and he had a very, very good video. I'm gonna link the video in the description if you want to see it yourself and follow the same steps that I did. Also, like he says in the description of his video, when you're installing Windows, make sure you click on where it says previous setup, and if it asks you to delete everything, click no. Otherwise, it might delete every single thing in your drive. Anyway, it took me about 30 minutes to set up dual booting and to make a partition big enough for Windows. I am using the Steamdeck OLED of 1 terabyte. It took me about another 30 minutes to install Windows. If you're gonna install Windows, I really recommend you to install a modified Windows version, deep-loaded Windows. So I installed the deep-loaded version of Chris Titus. He has an insane tool, and it's a very, very light installation of Windows, and I think this is very important for the Steam Deck specifically because it's so limited. So basically this modified Windows version removed all of the bloatware and all of the garbage Windows comes with. So for example, all of that Copilot stuff, I'm gonna link the video because he has a very good guide on how to do it. After I installed Windows, I installed Reaper. Also, it's easier and more straightforward to use Reaper. Everything is easier to find than in Cubase, at least that was my experience. I will just use Reaper forever. I installed Reaper and then I installed Neural DSP. As you know, I use Archetype Rabia for all of my videos, so that's what I did. I installed Archetype Rabia. So my Steam Deck recognizes my audio interface just as any other computer. After you install the drivers, everything works as expected. And all of my plugins are here. All of my EQs, so for example I have FabFilter, I have it here. And I can apply FabFilter Pro Q to my guitar channel. It's really interesting because you can't really do that on a pedal board or anything. Everything is different. So it felt really comfortable to have my home setup in a live setting. It's really interesting and it made me really comfortable. And because you already have a trackpad, it's basically like a laptop's trackpad. It's very easy to control the mouse. The way you control Reaper is by going into Steam itself. Steam lets you configure every single button. So basically, if you go into Steam Big Picture and then you go to Settings and then you go to Controller, you can see at the very bottom the desktop layout. That's basically your desktop or your computer controller. You can see all of the buttons and then you can choose whatever you want them to do. It could be as complicated as you want. So you can see that B is the escape key and Y is the recording shortcut for Reaper. So if you go to Actions, like the Actions menu on Reaper, and you click on Show Action List, you can see a list of every single shortcut that you can assign on Reaper. It is very interesting because it's also a touch screen. So I have my mix console in here and I can move all the parameters that I want with the touch screen, which is very nice. Okay, the one problem that I had is that Neural DSP or sometimes guitar plugins are just very big for the screen of the Steam Deck, so you can't really do much. You can't click on the buttons that are in the corners. If you want to fix it, you just have to go to your effects, and before adding the effect, you right click it and then you click compatibility settings and you enable high DPI compatibility. Once you enable that, it lets you resize the plugin however you want. It of course depends on the plugin and how old it is. With that, I had my session. What I did was very simple. I just routed every single part of the mix that was going through front of house to output number 1, and then I routed every single part of my in-ears to output number 2. So that would be the metronome basically. So I just have one slider for front of house and one slider for in-ear mix as well. I also made sure to hide all of the other tracks because I didn't want to accidentally move them or delete them. I'm too paranoid with it, so you can't see them here. You can only see them on the mixing console. As you can see, these are all of my envelopes, and envelopes is the name Reaper uses for all of the automations. And these are all of the reverb and delay and whatnot automation that I have on my tracks. That's how I played live. That's how it worked. This is really fascinating for me, and this is actually what I'm using live. Because I locked the session, I can't really accidentally move anything. As I said, I am really impressed of how well this works, and I find it extremely reliable. I will keep using it, and I will keep doing things with it because I really like it. It's very portable, and I don't have a laptop, so this is basically my laptop. It has even lower latency than my desktop computer, and I think that is just because Reaper is light, and also because the Steamdeck is very powerful for the price that you pay. I am extremely happy about Steamdeck. You guys know that I love to go out and write music in other places, so this is like really good for this. Oh, by the way, this is my cable for the in-ears. These are two 5 meter cables. So I have a headphone extension and a guitar cable, and they are stuck to each other with cable management mesh. You go on stage and then you plug in your guitar cable, but then you also have an extra slot for your in-ears. I can put this inside the guitar case. I don't even need an extra bag. I just put everything inside the guitar case and it fits. Anyway, that's how I did it. Goodbye.
Nice.
Oh man, it does work.
Oh yeah, and fits in nice and small little gig bag. Nice.
Oh, and kick-ass cable he put together there.
Sure.
Useful.
Yeah. I've seen people do that, like bring together like an instrument cable and a cable for their monitor or a cable for their microphone wire or whatever. Like do a little combo thing so they can just kind of kick the whole thing under a little carpet or whatever, so that they can keep it out of the way.
Yeah, well, you know what you're going to need, and especially when you're on stage, you don't want to be like cables everywhere. One nice snake.
Yeah, and especially because if you're going to an unknown stage, like you don't know if you're going to have to run across like an area here or an area there, so it's good to be prepared for that stuff.
Well, considering I was really happy to hear him say that the latency was even better than his laptop. The whole goal of something like this or that box we looked at last week is to not have to bring the laptop on the stage. And I'd rather bring something like this than a full-blown laptop, which is much more problematic.
Yeah, and even the version of Windows that's on there, like I also, when he mentioned the no latency, I was like, yeah, the debloated Windows I'm sure helps with that, where you're just really cutting everything out of there except what you really need to make it work.
Yeah, several good decisions that he made here. Going with Windows instead of Linux, smart move, because we already saw last week the obstacles. If you are going to try to use Linux to run these kinds of plugins, it's not that it can't do it. It has to go through that emulator phase, and that's where some of that latency comes from. So if you can get a lightweight Windows, like the debloated one, a lightweight DAW like Reaper really is CPU friendly. And these plugins really have no problem running under this kind of scenario.
Yep, exactly. And again, touch screen, excellent. Looked like the response was great on all the controls that he had there. Everything was great.
Yeah, when he said it's got a touch screen, I was like, oh, bonus. I mean, I don't normally care for the touch screens, but if I wanted to do a quick adjustment on a slider on the mixer, awesome that I can just do it right on the screen.
One tip I would give on that, from seeing Mike and how much mixing Mike did on the iPad and has done on the iPad over the time, like he found a stylus was very helpful, but with the stylus sometimes it would kind of skitter and you'd be like da-da-da-da-da when you're trying to move up or down. So what we found was helpful with the stylus or even with the finger is to roll rather than try to like you put it on the slider, but then you kind of roll up with the finger or you roll down with the finger, and that way you're getting the contact and you are registering a very slight up rather than having it go ga, 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 and like jump in large chunks, which you don't want.
Yeah, I'm curious if the Steam Deck's touchscreen is as good as the iOS ones.
Yeah, my thought is that, like, just looking at the size of it and the size of the screen on there, I mean, it feels like it can't be as responsive just because the slider itself is taking up so much less actual screen space that where you're touching is only going to be so responsive. But I'm sure it'll be fine for doing small adjustments like that, like you said.
Yeah, that's one thing where I mean, that screen looks adequate enough for what it is and what he's doing with it, but it would be awesome to be if I could plug an external monitor I don't mind bringing a monitor on stage as long as it doesn't break. The same reason I don't want to bring a laptop is if it does break and I depend on it, then technically you got to bring two, and there's got to be one in the back just in case.
One of the bands we worked with, the person brought his own monitor, like speaker for in front of him, just like a lot of people do that. But in his case, the monitor, he set it up just like any other would look like, but the front was actually would come off and just put his iPad there. So it was like a fake monitor where it was, it looks like it's just a piece of equipment on stage, but then he can put his sheet music there and have it right there.
Smart.
Pretty slick.
Yeah. I'd really like to see a musical stand that is a screen. Like, both a musical stand, but I can also have a tablet.
Sure. And that's the thing is like most musical stands, you can just put a tablet on it and then, you're doing both things, but you're.
Yeah, but I want it built in.
Well, what I liked was on, I don't have it up here. I have it down in the car. It's basically a music stand, but it's only about this big. Like it's pretty small. But the idea is that it basically just hooks onto a mic stand. So whatever normal mic stand you have in front of you, whether it's a straight stand or a boom stand or whatever, you can take this and kind of like with those drink holders that attach to a mic stand, it just attaches to the mic stand however you want. And then, I used to just put my iPad on there. And the fact that the iPad cover was magnetic meant that it would just hold onto there as well.
Nice.
And, but I would have it, kind of tipped away flat so that, I'm standing at the microphone and looking down and it's, in a good readable position, but it's also such a small footprint. It's not like having that big metal thing in front of you, like like you would see with an old school music stand.
With you, we need a 6.5 foot stand.
Exactly. Or that's what there's some people that put the words on the floor. I'm like, yeah, that's like I'll be right back. It's like that's not gonna work.
Well, I really like the intuitiveness that he had of trying this out. I'm surprised that this is the first that I'm hearing of somebody doing something like this with the Steam Deck, but why not give it a shot? Great results there.
And I give big bonus points for even trying the Linux option first. You only had a couple of days to work with it. That's if you're not a Linux expert and you're going to go dive in like that, that's ambitious. But
yeah, well, I give him more credit for he's not like your typical Windows or Linux guy who knows how to multi-boot and all of that. So he found the information he needed to, he followed the instructions, and he got it to work, and that says a lot.
Yeah, took the right amount of time to try the Linux solution and then say nope, time to cut and run and go try it another way, and he found the right solution. Now, like you were saying, it could work in Linux. I'm perfectly fine, I'm sure. And the thing is, if I were an expert personally in Linux, I would go down that route because you could figure out the ways around things and see if the latency is a problem. But at the same time, I think that the Windows solution is good too.
You might get better results with Linux on this Steam Deck than because the one we looked at last week, he was trying to do that with a Pi. And Pis are awesome. They're powerful for what they are, but they're not really designed to run an operating system like Windows, even in an emulator under Linux. That's pushing a little too hard on the hardware. This Steam Deck really does have that horsepower.
I mean, that thing is no joke. I mean, it can game, so it definitely has the horsepower.
Yeah. And after you get done with your gig, you can game
all the way home. Yeah. One thing I did find was playing video games while commuting to New York City on the bus. Like it's a lot of games. You'll actually get yourself motion sick if you're just trying to you're trying to do games doing this and this, and then
it's
the bus
like
goes
trying
that way,
to,
and then the bus goes
trying
this
to
way.
it's like trying to read when you're it's not good for your eyes.
No. So a lot of times it's just better just relax on the bus.
Yeah. That makes me want one of those.
Oh yeah.
At Sebasticide. Very interesting one there. I wasn't sure it was going to work, and it's awesome to hear that he's actually using it on stage like that.
And I love that little speaker too. The speaker the size of the interface.
Yeah. Very cool, Sebastian.
Yes.
Now we're going to learn how to survive. And preppers have always interested me. I'm related to some. Some of my best friends have that kind of mentality, and it's all about being prepared for any possible situation. And this particular piece of hardware here, I mean, it's a basically a hard drive, but it does have some additional features that are useful if you are in a situation where the power's out, you got no access to the internet, you can't go get your manuals or your instructions on how to do certain things. Then you might want to make sure you have some of those things stored and that you can run them in the unlikely event that the whole internet goes down.
Exactly. The important stuff like the real books.
Yeah. And this is a channel that's designed to give you tips on all sorts of different. I will be going back to this. My brother's going to love this channel. He's Prepper 101 and at the Urban Prepper. Just look at the videos.
Nice.
Yes, I'm going to be going through all of these. But this one, this is a drive that I almost built one of these over a decade ago because my friend Jason, he was like, you should have one of these with certain information. Like any manuals for like our tractor, certain things that you might need to access when you can't get access to them online.
Especially the generator manual.
Yeah, well, today's generators, that's I'm going to see if he's got anything there, because with these solar powered ones, it's a cool new world when it comes to backup power.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But here we're going to look at the data that they kind of focus on making sure that you have access to. And the interesting thing with this one is its ability to become a hotspot, because I've got a lot of machines here. If I could at least run power to the house and get a couple of these machines working, this would become my internet temporarily.
Nice. Got it. Sounds useful.
Yeah. Better have useful information.
Yes.
This is the Prepper Disk Premium, a 512 gigabyte offline survival hotspot loaded with critical information. It works with no internet, no cell towers, and no satellites. In a real grid-down situation, information becomes one of the most valuable preps you could have. This gives you access to a massive offline library that you could use on your phone, tablet, or laptop anytime, anywhere. At its core, the Prepper Disk runs on a Raspberry Pi, a small, low-power computer configured to create its own private Wi-Fi network and host all of this content locally. Let's take a closer look at the Prepper Disk now. The unboxing experience was impressive. Everything comes packaged cleanly with quality parts. They include clear instructions, all the necessary cables, a solid aluminum case, and a genuine 512 gigabyte SanDisk micro SD card. They also include a 10,000 milliamp hour power bank. I expected a budget unit, but it turned out to be an Anchor, which is the brand I personally prefer. Right out of the box, everything feels well thought out. Setup only takes a couple of minutes. Inside the Prepper Disk, you get a massive offline library, including things like an offline copy of Wikipedia, offline street maps and satellite imagery, WikiHow guides, medical references, survival manuals, repair guides, a ton of ebooks, and much more. Everything is searchable, organized, and available without any internet connection. Here's how it works. Plug your Prepper Disk into an outlet or the included Anchor battery. Connect your phone, tablet, or laptop to the Wi-Fi network named Prepper Disk. Open your browser and go to 10.10.10.10 or scan the QR code. You then browse through all the preloaded content using your device as normal. Up to 20 devices could connect at once. This is a useful addition to a bug-out bag, a power outage kit, or a family emergency setup. It weighs almost nothing and provides a large amount of offline knowledge during a blackout or evacuation. People with technical skills could assemble something similar using a Raspberry Pi, but many preppers prefer to buy something that works instantly without any setup or downloads. A Raspberry Pi starter kit is around $120, and an Anchor battery is at least $20. At roughly $200, Prepper Disk takes care of all the configuration and content loading and provides a ready-to-use device. For many users, that convenience is worth the difference. This is a topic I've talked about before, having offline access to information like Wikipedia, maps, and reference material when the grid goes down. The Prepper Disk takes that idea and packages it into something that's clean, organized, and extremely easy to use. I really like the design, the quality of the components, and the amount of content that's already loaded and ready to go. Most importantly, it's something you can hand to anyone in your household and they can use it without any learning curve. I've now added this into my own grid down preparedness setup, just in case. Having reliable access to information during an outage is one of those quiet preps that can make a big difference. If this is something you're interested in, I've included a link down below so you can check it out for yourself. I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. Stay tuned for more urban emergency preparedness videos. See you next time.
Yes, if the power does go out, I do want my Linda Carter Wikipedia page offline.
Gotta make sure you have the important thing. That's right.
Well, as he mentioned, you could put together. I know when he said pie, you were thinking like, "Damn, yes, I could make my own."
Yeah.
But
I
it
do
is
like the all in one.
well, it is nice having a turnkey kind of solution like this. I would actually possibly do both because in a scenario like that, this is nice because it just works, and 512 gigs is a lot for the kind of storage we're talking here. Data, text, a lot of that isn't going to take a tremendous amount of space. But if I rolled my own with a Pi, I might add a much bigger hard drive. Today's little 2.5-inch portable drives, they get pretty big. And if you could take it's kind of like that. What would you take on if you were going to a desert island?
Sure.
And would you rather have a 512 gig drive to a desert island, or would you rather have like a 4 terabyte of data and games?
Sure. I mean, I'm a big fan of the games, but like for me, the what's on this thing, it would be right for the bug out bag, and then for everything else, you can have other machines connecting to it, so you can have another Raspberry Pi, like you said, jacked up for storage and for arcade games, whatever, and use that to then access the other one. So
yeah, and that's why I think I would both buy the turnkey, considering if it's cost efficient and its price, and from the sounds of it, it's competitive with the actual hardware. And then I'd roll my own so that I have expansion options.
Exactly. And even with what I've already seen with the Pi, just having different cards is basically just a whole different operating system. So this card is my arcade system, and this card over here is for Scratch, and then this card over here is for whatever. So you can just have it multi-boot basically just by having different cards to slap in.
Yeah. So after I get done communicating with the world that I'm still alive, I can go game.
I can get right back to Metal Slug. There you go.
And if I get that Steamdeck as well, then I can play guitar.
While running around.
I'm a survivor. Very
Urban
cool
Prepper.
channel. Very cool channel. I'm going to show this one to my brother. He's going to love this stuff. Right up his alley, at the Urban Prepper, and he's got the urbanprepper.com, so he's got a mothership.
All right.
Yep, that's the urbanprepper.com. And he does have some cool gear. Like that is the kind of stuff I would want accessible in a pinch.
Yep. The bug out bag.
Yep. So now the lizard. We get to the lizard in our mixing segment for tonight. It's been a while since we did a mixing or mastering night, and Mixbus TV. This is one of the channels that we found when we were doing our mixing night. David great mixing tips, great engineering tips. And for this one, I wanted to discuss inserts, because that's one of the things when it comes to mixers that some people get confused about their purpose. And at Mixbus TV is going to be showing us like hardware inserts and how they work, what they're good for, and how it can really help your mixing and mastering if you use them properly.
All right. And
Especially,
the wizard says, "You better watch."
especially if you use like external effects and things like that, guitar pedals and things that you have to route out a signal, process an effect, and route back in. This is where it's important to understand how these work.
On the inserts.
Yes, we're going to insert it now.
Okay, so mixing. That's the bass. Those are the guitars.
What's up everyone, David here, welcome back to Mixbus TV. Hope you guys are having a great day. A few weeks ago I did a video that got pretty popular, how to connect analog gear to your home interface if you want to start with analog gear. And to my surprise, a lot of people found that basic video useful, and I'm happy about it. And so there were many questions about hardware inserts. So once I connected my gear to my interface, how do I use it? Every DAW is going to be slightly different, but pretty much the concept is the same. So if you haven't watched that video and you're interested in the subject, go back and watch it. I'll link the video down below. So basically, if this was an interface, the output from here, so from your DAW, will go into, for example, a distressor, and from the distressor will go out into the interface. That's the physical connection, okay? But once you have that set up, how does it work here on Pro Tools? So how would I use any of these machines to mix? And I'm gonna show you that today. So this is not even a rough mix. I just started this mix, so everything is all over the place, so don't listen to that. We're just using this as an example. In fact, I'm just starting this mix, and I always start to the drum, and the kick drum, which is the first element of the drum, I already have a hardware insert, which is one of my SSL 4Ks here, and I thought, let me stop. This is a good chance to show people how to use inserts. So first of all, we can listen to the kick drum, just really quick. And as you can see here, I have two kick drums. They go to this kick sum bus because, again, when you have analog, and this is already part of the lesson, in this case, I have two mono kick drums, right? So this one and this one. So a more roomy live kit and a very tight up in front kick. When you use analog gear, it also changes how you route things, because of course I don't have unlimited channels. So first of all, I don't need to have a piece of hardware on kick 1 and kick 2. I sum them together and I save, so to speak, all the processing for the sum channel for two reasons. The main reason is these two kick drums are in phase, and if I start, I have a console 1 plugin on each one, but as you can see, there's nothing on it. There, it's just default. There's no EQ, nothing at all, right? It's because I open one on every channel, while all the processing is on the sum channel, which in this case, console 1 is also in default because I'm using an actual hardware, the SSL 4K. And if we take a look at the channel there, this is how it sounds with it. Not too much of a heavy processing, again, the mix just started, but regardless. So as you can see, the hardware insert, in this case, the SSL 4K, goes right here where the plugins go. The difference is, if I click here in the empty slot, I can either pick a plugin from my list, or you can see down at the bottom, I have my IOs, okay? Which obviously, these are my physical input and outputs on my network of interfaces. And of course, I named each insert with the name of the machine that is on that input and output. So for example, if we take a look at here, number 1 and 2 is for the monitoring, 3 and 4 is the drummer saturator, the 1976, and then I have an API, then I have the MIMAs, then I have my 2-bus, the first Fatso, the Wizard, Blue Stripe, and so on, API, and all the other machines. As you can see, every insert, every physical input and output has a name, the name of the machine that is connected to it. If I open the drum, for example, and I usually, on the drum bus, I use my 5500 with the Fatso. So if I type 5500, you can see Pro Tools recognizes that I have a 5500 here in the list. I can also pick it from here, right there. And the entire drum kit, which is routed to the drums output, will go to the API 5500. Okay, we talked about the Pro Patch, the Wolf Audio digitally controlled patch bay, and usually my processing for drums is API 5500. You can see it here with the Fatso. So I'm gonna drag the Fatso right here, and you can hear the awesome sounding relays there, the sound quality. And you will see that my Fatso, which now is not set up for this mix, but it will be in the chain. Okay, if I want more compression, I will do this. Okay, so how do you set this one up? We go into the setup IOs, and this is again Pro Tools, but most DAW work exactly the same. And you can see I have all my channels. Up here, I have up to 72 channels right here, okay? And each one connected to a hardware unit. Of course, these are not all my hardware units because some of them are daisy chained. So for example, here the 2-bus. The 2-bus has 5 units that are always in that chain, and I bypass and unbypass one I don't want. And same for other things. I have some chains where I can bypass individually because I never changed that routing, so to speak. This is, by the way, the insert tab. So you have your inputs, you have your outputs, bus, Dolby Atmos, which doesn't interest us today, and then inserts. These are our inserts, and as you can see, you can color code them, so you can just give them a color, and you can name them with the unit that is connected to that specific input and output. Once you set it up, you will find all your hardware right here. And this is a stereo channel, so you can see all my stereo units, right? So the Fatso Wizard 1176s, this is empty right now. There's actually the loud limiter there, 78, 2BQS audio, mag, and so on. These are all my hardware, like most of my hardware, okay? And if you want to pop something in, let's say I want, I don't know, the Carnaby, I'm just going to turn it on. That's it. Now the drums is going to that Carnaby, which I can open also the plugin for it, so I don't even need to reach for it, and that's it. Okay, if I want to bypass it, I just bypass it, go back to the API. And that's pretty much it. So, things to pay attention to. In Pro Tools, if you don't have native Avid interfaces of Pro Tools HDX, you have to pay attention to the insert delay, hardware insert delay. So as you can see here, there's numbers, right? For all the channels that I have, which are right now with this setup, 72. So 72 physical input and output. That's not counting the DAs and the capturing converters, Burl and AD Plus and all that. But you have to set up your latency for the hardware insert. You need to calculate it, input the numbers, and then you can save it, export settings. And in Pro Tools, again, if you don't have the HDX or Avid native interfaces, you have to do this manually. I have a video on how to calculate the latency. I'll link it down below. And also very important in Pro Tools, again, this is a real pain, and I wish Avid would fix this. You have to do this for every sample rate. So the numbers and the latency is going to change at different sample rates. So if we go here and let's say I click import settings, you can see there's latency for 48, latency for 96, latency for 88, and so on. So whatever is the sample rate of the project. In this case, I think this is a 48. You see it here, session 48. I will make sure to load the correct hardware insert delay that I saved. I calculated it once and I saved it. Now I actually for this have a preset on my sound flow here. I can actually click this button here and it automatically load whatever, you know, latency I need for the session. That's very convenient, but this is pretty much it. So once you connected physically the gear to your interface or interfaces, you will use your hardware exactly how you use a plugin. So your audio will go out, will be processed by the hardware, and then will go back in. No different than a plugin. You can tweak it in real time, and that's about it. That's how you use analog inserts. And this is the video. Oh, and by the way, yes, Cenobite is here with me today. We're making videos together. So say hi to Cenobite. And this was it for this video. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment down below if you have questions. If you want to book mix and mastering with me or Cenobite, go to the website mixplustv.com. In there you can also find all the mix and mastering courses. If you want to access the exclusive library of in-depth mixing and mastering videos here on YouTube, click the join button, become a MixPlusTV member. And if you want to support the channel or you want to buy dinner to Cenobite, consider using the super thanks or grab some merch. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Stay safe. See you next time.
Okay, it's mixing, fader writing. That's the bass. Those are the guitars. What are you trying to tell me? The mix is off?
Violence with my kiss, poison on your lips. Never again will I let someone in, aching with a loss, so tragedy in my bones. Violence.
Oh, I like Cenobite.
Yeah. Only thing is, he doesn't mix. Cenobite doesn't mix enough bass in though. We gotta work. We gotta have him work on that.
I'd rather buy him dinner than be dinner.
That's right. That's right. But he probably would love some salad.
And you know, it's been so long since I've had to deal with hardware inserts. You know, I jumped into the VST world, and like it's nice being able to load virtual effects that just route automatically. But to be able to bring in some of that, you know, cool analog hardware, bring it back into the fold, there's things I would like to use if they were more convenient to plug in. Sure.
Yeah, and that's where the home routing in your studio comes in, you know, getting it so that you can use the equipment that you want to in the most convenient way you can.
Yeah, and some of that hardware that he had, if it comes with its own plugin, I wish some of my old hardware had a plug-in version so I could remote control it from the screen and use the physical hardware.
Yeah, absolutely. But good to use the you know, and again, the bussing the drums together, like that's one of those concepts we've talked about before, and the importance of it, and how you can reduce overhead by not having the effects on every single channel, but by bussing it all together and then putting it on there.
But in this case, he's offloading the overhead to physical hardware. So, you know, the machine doesn't have to deal with that because the box in the back does.
Exactly. And then the one thing that it adds, in my opinion, is the one thing that it does add is that extra hardware connection, where now that's another cable that can have a problem. So to me, that's where, you know, it's not that it's a reason not to do it. It's something that you have to keep in mind when you're troubleshooting. If you are having an issue, you have to think about the fact that there's all these additional cables that are involved.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting that if you are dealing with external hardware like this going into digital like that, the latency that you have to pay particular attention to that delay in order to make sure that you're compensating properly with the analog hardware, that in the old days, there was no such thing as latency if everything was analog.
Yeah. And that is one of the reasons that people like the plugins at this point, is you don't have to worry about any of that because the plugin handles it already. So
yeah, that's not a problem on the virtual side of effects.
Yeah.
But there are some benefits to the hardware side, like certain compressors. There's engineers out there who swear by their hardware compressors. They will, even though there's a zillion digital ones, they want their hardware ones.
Even if they have the digital one of their hardware one, they still want the hardware one.
It's not the same.
Yeah, it's not. It's not identical.
Yeah, but thank you, David, for explaining inserts. It's one of those conversations I've had with mixers, in the past, especially the guitarists, the ones who have guitar pedals that they want to incorporate over on their computer side. But like he said, it's all about routing, and you got to know what you're routing out of that pedal and routing into the signal.
Yep. And you definitely don't want to route it in and out the same signal, because then you start routing a loop.
Amateur.
Yeah. Don't do that.
No, go to @MixBus TV and learn how to do it right.
Definitely.
Great tips and videos here. And he also at mixbustv.com. He's got courses on engineering and mixing that worth looking at.
Absolutely.
And for our last mixing channel of the night, this is coming from the big dog, Waves Audio, the makers of so many plugins, and some very useful ones. The D reverb was very surprised at how useful that can actually be.
Nice.
And on this channel, you'll find everything Waves, at all their offerings, tips on them, the benefits of which plugins do what at Waves, nice and easy on YouTube. And this one is for showing a mix bus chain. Like, at the end of your bus and you get through all the tracks, they're all going into buses, possibly. The last bus, the master, how you set up your effects, and do you need to? Personally, I don't. I tend to take care of everything in an earlier bus. By the time I get to the master bus, I'm usually pretty happy with what I'm getting. I don't want to mess with it too much because everything you do there affects everything, affects all the tracks together. And having a good chain there, one that the Wave plugins can give you a good chain. We're going to take a look and see what they suggest there.
And as you say, you could end up magnifying problems if you if you make too many adjustments on that final bus, you can end up magnifying a problem from earlier conflicting reverbs. We've talked about that before.
Exactly. If you didn't totally clean up that problem earlier, how you deal with it on the master bus could just amplify what you're trying to get rid of.
Indeed.
Yeah. Let's see what Wave says on what we should use over there.
Welcome back to the Waves Audio YouTube channel. My name is Guy Britton, and in this video I'm going to show you how to get more punch, more energy and more clarity out of your tracks by processing your entire mix using a simple but effective mix bus processing chain. As always, before we begin, please do give this video a thumbs up and subscribe, and let's get into it. The track we're working with today is disco-inspired indie pop thing, which is very much driven by the drums and the groove, the bass line and all the percussive elements. So that's what we want to bring out and enhance with the mix bus processing. So the first thing to mention is that all of the individual tracks within this session are currently being routed down here to this mix bus at the bottom of the window, and this is where all the mix bus processing is going to happen in this session. First up in the mix bus processing chain, I have an instance of the NLS channel. Let's take a listen to what this is doing. coming from this NLS channel is just adding a bit of depth and extension in the low end and opening the top end a bit, giving it a bit more excitement and a bit more harmonic richness. The mic setting for me is adding too much low end, and the spike is not really kind of doing a lot for me. So I'm really into this Neve emulation. I just feel like it's the right amount of saturation and character being added to the mix. Next up in the chain, we have an instance of the F6 dynamic EQ, which is just dealing with some of this harshness around about the 2K area. There's some harshness coming from the vocals and a few of the other elements in the mix, and this is just helping to deal with some of that resonance. So let's take a listen to what this but it's just helping to dial out some of that screechiness that's coming from those held notes on the vocal. Following on from the F6, I have an instance of the SSL comp, which is a classic compressor for a mix bus. I've got it set to 2:1 ratio, slowest attack possible, fastest release possible, and then the sidechain filter is it's very subtle. Again, like a lot of the elements in this mix bus processing chain, the individual moves are very subtle, but when we sum them together at the end, you'll see what a difference they're making. And for me, the compressor is just bringing a bit more energy, a bit more tightness. I don't really like the phrase gluing it together, but I guess you could say it is gluing it together. It's bringing those elements right at the back of the mix, like the reverbs, the backing vocals, the percussion. It just feels like it's bringing them forward a little bit more and tightening the whole thing up. And I really like how that's sounding. Next up in the chain, I have a bit of an unusual plugin. I've got the Trans XY Transient Enhancer, and this is just helping to enhance the transients of the kick drum and the snare and just bring the groove out a little bit more. I feel like I want it to be a bit snappier, a bit punchier, and I've actually got the soft kick preset, which is by default sort of transient reduction setting, but I've flipped this so that it's actually enhancing the transients and bringing a bit more punch. The range right up, it sounds ridiculous and it's way overcooked, but just blended in a small amount, 1.6 or so, is nice. It just gives it a little bit more enhancement to those transients and helps enhance the groove, the elements of the kick and the snare, and just brings a bit more danciness to the whole thing, which is what we're looking for with all of this mix bus processing. Following this in the chain, we now have an instance of the Sheps 73, and I've got this set to the mix, widen and focus preset. And what this is doing is it's working in mid-side mode. So this band here is controlling the middle of the mix, and this band here is controlling the side of the mix. And we're just boosting the top end on the sides and then boosting a tiny bit of low end in the middle. And this is going to give the illusion that the mix is wider and that those elements left and right of the center of the mix are much brighter. Makes it feel a little bit more energetic, and it's bringing out those back and vocal parts and those percussive parts, so on the left and the right of the mix, giving it a bit more energy and a bit more width. Next up in the chain, I have an instance of the C6 multi-band compressor, and we're going to be using this to hone in on the low end here and also on the mid-range. I feel like at the minute the low end is jumping around quite a lot, where that bass line is very dynamic. I feel like the low end is a little bit uncontrolled, so we could tighten that up a little bit with some compression and then just focus on that mid-range a bit as well, where there's a lot going on. We dialed out a little bit earlier with the F6, but I feel like we can tighten that up even more. So let's take a listen to what this is doing. lighten up that mid-range and bring a bit more focus to the mix overall, which is consequently giving it a bit more energy and a bit more cohesion. Last up, I just want to add a bit more polish, a bit more finesse to the mix, extend the end ranges of the mix, so give it a bit more top end, a bit more low end depth, and just make the mix sound bigger overall. So I've got an instance of the Pwigtech EQP 1A here, and I've got the top end shelf set to 12K, quite a wide bandwidth, and then I'm also boosting down here these low frequencies at 30 hertz. So let's take a listen to what this is doing. We've got a 7 dB boost at this 12K shelf, so it's quite a big boost. Let's take a listen to what difference this is. To open up that top end of the mix, give it a lot more shine, a lot more airiness, and then a lot more depth with this boost in the low end. I'm also using this attenuation at the same point where I'm boosting, and that might seem like a bit of a counterintuitive, strange thing to do, but actually what it does is with a Pultec style EQ, if you get the attenuation in the sweet spot around about where the boost is, it creates this notch, which gives it a bit more bump and a bit more punch. I think this is sounding really good now. I think we made a huge difference with this mix bus processing to make the mix sound bigger, brighter, bolder, wider. Let's take a listen on and off with all of that mix bus processing.
That made a nice subtle difference.
Yeah, and that's the thing is you don't realize how much each of those little changes makes, because those little very subtle differences that he was pointing out, each one sounded like it almost amounted to very little, right? But then when you add them all together, it really does make a big difference.
Well, like he said, as he was laying them out and saying, you can't really hear it as much here, but when you hear it all together, and this kind of mixing is about like the overall sound, and when you hear the final product, it's fuller. There's better low end. That tinniness that we used to hear in the MP3 kind of problems in the early days.
Sure.
He fixed it with this combination. EQ all through the process, EQ at the start, EQ in the middle, EQ at the end, with
little compression in there too. Yeah,
strategic compressors. The SSL, man, so many people swear by that one for its usefulness. And then getting into the multiband is where a lot of that fixing he did there to get that high end and the low end to actually fill out and not sound all high end. That multiband was a nice touch.
Definitely sounded good.
Yeah, and the waves plugins, they're pretty easy to learn and figure out. Like everything, all the knobs make sense. It's not like one of those weird plugins that has a weird name for something, and it's like, what does that do?
Well, like you mentioned, it might seem odd to like put a boost and attenuate at the same place, like you're putting notch in that same point, but there are reasons to do such a thing, and it's the kind of thing that you would try just in messing around with it. And if that happens to be where the sweet spot came out, where it sounds the best, because so much of it is better A or B. You just want to listen to it off, listen to it off, and be prepared to come back and listen to it with fresh ears multiple times on multiple days.
Well, and when it comes to the end of the chain mixing like this, because this is what you do to polish the final track before you send it to the Spotify or to DistroKid, the boosts and things like that, you kind of have to test them with where you're sending to. It took me 6-7 months with BandLab before I finally figured out exactly how much boost I had to give it that I was losing when I would upload it to them.
Yep. And that's, like you said, trial and error. You just have to keep going through it, and you try this, you try that, and you see where you're getting it closer and closer to that spot where you really want it.
Yeah. Yeah. And in that kind of case, like, you've got to make a master, put it up on the platform, listen to it reference from the platform. How close is it to your original project before you uploaded it to them?
And also the the listening tests of songs in the similar style at the appropriate volume, so you can go an A and a B listen to your song versus another song that was professionally mastered at that at a similar volume for a similar style.
Well, and that's why having like reference tracks for like calibrating and if you use the reference track approach, you will get the kind of sound that you're trying to get, because your reference track is what you're calibrating to.
Exactly.
And if you have good reference tracks in different genres, you can mix anything.
Exactly. Yeah. And you know what to change on the fly, even if you don't have something preset for ukulele banjo night. You can figure it out.
Oh, we got to have a ukulele banjo night.
You can't come in unless you brought a ukulele or a banjo.
I brought both.
And you can come in and you can have a drink.
It's like the fiddlers and the violinists.
There you go. Keep them separate. You don't want to mix them.
So that's at Waves, the mothership for their products, their information tutorials. And you can also go to waves.com, check out their offerings. They're one of the big dogs in the plugin world. As far as effects go, they've, I think, got the most.
They've got a whole bunch, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely makes me want to go back through my Waves plugins. I've got them all on this machine.
Yep.
I just don't know what to do with them. There's so many. It was like the monster pack, like 500.
And that's the question, is like, you just got to start picking ones that you would use the most, or the ones that if you had like a wish list of which add-ons, not even knowing what they make, but saying like, what kind of an add-on would I want, which ones would I go after, and then try and see which ones they have, find a few favorites in there and build from there.
Yeah, I've gone to some of the specialty ones, like the D reverb is unique.
Yeah.
And to be able to pull reverb out of a wet recording, they actually impressed me on that one.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I remember when we first looked at one of the spatial ones, where you could like draw a path, like you want the sound to do this around your head, like you can draw that out, set the timing and all that, and seeing how those, when we first started looking at the stuff, it was like, yeah, that's what we
Yeah, I've played around with some of those spatial ones, and now that Atmos is like starting to spatial mixing is becoming kind of the norm, and it's not just stereo anymore. There's depth to the spatial that, like, Sonatus was the one that I showed you, comes with Cakewalk and lets you draw in 3D space where you want your signal to move.
And you can have that guitar just go circle around your head if you want.
Yeah, we'll have to do a spatial night.
Nice.
And we'll mix it with space.
Yes, space in space.
So it'll be a little bit of astronomy.
We could do that.
Surround sound.
Yeah. On a Thursday.
Yeah. Well, a little bit of news, unsettling. You know, some good writing advice. What was our middle? Oh, the Steamdeck.
Steamdeck. Yeah. Very nice.
Very impressed that he managed to get that done. And then our mixing tips. Definitely want to have another mixing night.
Oh yeah, we will always have another mixing night.
Yeah, I've got some shit to mix.
That's right.
I need my tips.
Gotta have stuff to cook.
Well, we'll be back cooking next week. I'll be a little bit older.
That's right. Well, happy birthday in advance.
No, anything that wasn't gray already will be.
All right. Badge of honor.
We'll see you then.
Take care, everybody. Thanks.
Night, everyone.
We cover digital audio workstations and music tools. We explore theory, gear and 82. How to write and compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac and even with a mobile device. We'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and sys that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin Shhh I.T. We're talking Shhh I.T. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much rap. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking Shhh I.T. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn.